mitt vindringspartiet. Gjør konger hundere skal drentor. Regnom strøm når ei var sist. Vår jarl kaldir vil dere
Welcome back, you filthy exiles. So I finally managed to muster up the energy to do a part 2, and we won't be doing like the final build guide until we get to mageblood level, because we really need mageblood at this level to get it to doing ubers and stuff like that. But as it stands, the damage is really good. It just can't face tank stuff as good as I want it to, mainly because ubers are just like super mobile and also very hard to get to now. But anyway. So what am I using this build for? Currently, I am using this build for... Sorry, I brain melt. Didn't know if that was actually something that was worth selling or not selling. I've been using this boss predominantly for Delve Boss Rush. And so, if we have a look, basically it's just pulling through 350 dip Delve. But, in fact, I've gotten about as low as... Oh, we're going to keep going down. I've gotten to about 568 without too much hassle. I can keep pushing lower, but it's sort of just like, I want something a little smoother as it stands. But anyway, let's just go into D&D mode so that we don't get spammed. The other thing I've been doing with this is like delirious maps where I've been basically, as you can see, farming cluster jewels and then just like quick crafting cluster jewels. So a bit of an idea of the mechanics sort of that at play. Basically, this is running Incinerate. Now, I did get this working with venting, and I need to get another level up and then another impale, but that's like 14 div and it's really expensive and I don't want to buy it yet. So basically we get to like, with the current setup, when we max stack up, we get to about 11 mil DPS. Now, you can easily get to that DPS, number one, because the cast speed is at 12.59 without any major buffing, and on top of that, 14 stacks is perfectly achievable because we have Forbidden Flesh and Forbidden Flame, giving us Vile Bastion, which makes us stun immune while we have Energy Shield, because the CI build, so we always have Energy Shield, otherwise we'd be dead. So we get to about 11.1 mil, that's at 4 stacks with Sigil of Power Up, 10.659 if we don't have Sigil of Power Up, but we generally always have Sigil of Power when we're hitting up enemies. Now, room to move, definitely. There's like enlightens that need to be upgraded, there's better gear to be sought, there's a whole heap of upgrades. Where it currently is, it's not fast enough for me to move through Delve, even though it is really fast, and the way that we get around that is we just use Frostblink of Wintry Blast to sort of move. So it is quite fast to move around Delve, but my hands are getting old and I'm not what I used to be with video games, so I want something even lazier than this, and I have something planned to do that, which I'll be leveling on stream later. Now, some other things about the build. I am struggling to take down Uber Elder right now, mainly because I was just tired when I was trying to do it, but also because it's not as mobile as other builds, it is a little more difficult to navigate around Uber Elder, and so it can easily take them down, don't get me wrong, damage-wise, but it's just a little frustrating because standing still and trying to face tank requires a better flask setup, which I have not done yet. My flasks are not perfect at any sort of point of the game right now. That being said, took down Maven, takes down Crystal Kings, as you would have seen, 423 Crystal King down easy. It can take Kings down to about as far as like 500 to 600, and you know, not Eater of Worlds, Val Architects and things like that are not a problem. Kurgle, if you want to take him down, you can, but I wouldn't recommend it. Abyss Boss and Delve's pretty useless, but that's what I'm using this build for. What else can it do? Basically anything else. It's an all-rounder build. Can it do T17s? With a bit more investment, yeah, because getting it to Uber level, mageblooding it up, is going to get you to that point. Now, could you play other mechanics? It can do Essence pretty competently. It can do Anarchy and Strongbox pretty competently. It's pretty decent in mapping now, though it's an acquired playstyle, so basically just results in like moving around, blasting, and then frost-blinking to the next sort of node, and then blasting some more, but it's perfectly playable. Now, people ask me of venting or standard. For standard Incinerate, I'll put trees up for both. There is a big difference between two, and so switch between based on your use needs. So Incinerate's better in maps, the standard Incinerate, because of the final wave burst that does a huge amount of damage. You don't get that when you have Incinerator venting, but you get a lot more flat damage as you ramp up to 14 stacks. And so having eventing is significantly better for bosses. So you don't want to break your Incinerate on bosses. Venting is perfect for that. Now it does work with everything else. So anyway, yeah, overall, like, it's pretty good all-rounder build. Like, expense-wise, it's now notching up into probably the 60 to 70 div, though the price of things have come down a fair bit. So, you know, the big things are like the +2 implicit chest piece, the Forbidden Flesh, and the Forbidden Flame. And that's about really it that makes it expensive. The wand's like a 2 or 3 div wand, so it's not like crazy expensive, and the bottle face expensive. But realistically, everything else in the build is pretty kosher. So, and it also has a Thread of Hope with large rings. So, like, the big stuff that costs would get you like 60 to 70 div, and that gets you a build that can basically do everything in the end game. Less currently Ubers right now, and it can also delve competently down to like 600 as well, probably 800 as its current iteration. So is it decent? It's not bad for the price that you're paying for it. Anyway, let's get into the gearing. Let's get into the PoB. Let's talk about that next. Okay, PoB check. Alright, so we got Incinerate venting, we got 14 stages, which is what we're going to get when standing still and hitting bosses. This is made for face tanking stuff, so that's exactly what we do. We get 14 stacks up pretty quickly as well, so it's not like it's a major issue in the first place. If we had 1 stack, we're on 3 mil. So, you know, you can adjust as you need to. Someone might call crap on that, go crazy, tell me how else you're going to do damage with this build. Good luck to you if you think you're going to sit there and tap buttons one after another. But that's how channeling builds work. So anyway, we got Arcane Surge. We get that from Arcane Surge in our 6-link setup. We're using Soul the Brine King just to stop freeze for now. We need to address that in the build somewhere else. Soul the Tuka Armor for regeneration. We have 5-second stationary. This synergizes with our Nature's Patience and with everything else in the build that basically has damage and defense while we stop moving. Then we come down, enemies killed like 10, like we're playing Delve, we're going to be killing like thousands of enemies per, minute, so hundreds per minute. Flask active, yes, Arcane Surge on, no Onslaught. On Consecrated Ground we have a Bolt of Faith, so yes, we have Consecrated Ground. Nothing else has been adjusted here. Do we have Convergence? Yes, Convergence comes from hitting rare and unique enemies, so that is boss damage. Brands on enemies, yes. Infusion, yes, you have Infusion when you start channeling, so yep. 4 stacks of Sigil of Power. If you really want, I'll put the PoB up with 1 stack of Sigil of Power, or even better, no Sigil of Power, then nobody can complain. And then we come down, no changes in here. We have enemies ignited, we do fire damage and we ignite. There's a chance for that to happen. And then Shock, we have that from the Ascendancy point here, Shaper of Storms. And then we have Exposed to Fire is built into the gloves, though it doesn't really do anything anyway because we have that built into our cluster jewel with Master of Fire. We have Unnerved, this is in our gloves, so we have on our gloves Unnerved, 15% chance for Unnerved, really easy to get that. You just get it from smacking a XR crafting implicit thing on it. Can never remember the name. Is the enemy covered in ash? Yes, we have we have Warcry, Infernal Cry up pretty much all the time on a call to arms setup, so yep, and you are on Consecrated Ground, which gives us pretty much no major advantages there. Actually, yeah, it gives us a damage advantage, so it's like 12 mil, and with Sigil of Power you get up to like 13 mil, so it's pretty good. Like, it overall is pretty solid build. Guardian Pinnacle boss damage too, always make sure that's ticked on in trees, and if you want Uber damage, it's like 3.7 mil, it's not great. Standard boss damage is like 13.1, no, like 15 mil, but we're then lying to ourselves then anyway. So yeah, that's the PoB, really simple stuff. Now, as far as gearing on this one, Helm. Pretty much the same as last time, except you'll see the Ica implicit 6% physical damage taken as Chaos damage is a significant improvement. Because we're running a Chaos Inoculation character, that means another 6% of damage taken from physical is completely nullified. You can also get that on the shield as well, but that's a lot more expensive, so I've went for crit reduction here. And we also have casting speed. Rest of it is resistances and ES at the end of the day. In the wand setup, we have, like, we don't have the best wand we could get. We could get a way better wand if we actually use the corpse crafting, but I'm really lazy and I don't like the league mechanics, so we'll see what happens with that. Pretty much cast speed, flat damage to fire damage if you can get it, crit multi, and fire spell gems, and if you can get +2, even more damage to you. We've got an Anathema, obviously, that's why we run a Arcanus brand setup up here, so we can have up to 4 power charges currently, which means we can have up to 4 hexes and curses. Now, my chest piece, I've got a +2 implicit level of AoE socketed gems. This one's not cheap. what are we at? Oh, it's like 7 to 10 divine. It's not too bad. It's went down in price. More available now that we're in like the 3rd week of league. So yeah, pretty much best in socket. Incandescent heart, run this on pretty much all my channeling builds. It gives you a ton of armor, ton of ES, and it also gives you a little bit of chaos damage as well from your elemental damage conversion. Now in the amulet, we've got a replica Dragon's Fang with Incinerate gems +3, and we've also got Charisma anointed onto this as well. And then we have a Vivisect ring. Now I switched this to a 31 strength and 31 dex variant, similar to my Lightning Tendies build from last league. This just makes sure that you don't have to allocate redundant tree points in your skill tree. On the gloves, I switched these out. I've got a lot of regeneration, and I've got like 150 plus energy shield with fire exposure and unnerved enemies. Though you could get rid of the fire exposure, you're gonna have that either way. And then my belt, I've just got a really solid belt, like a lot of resistances, a lot of ES. I haven't 20% quality this, which I should do, but eventually going to switch the mageblood anyway, so it's irrelevant. And then obviously my Ralakesh, which these are now pretty affordable. They're down to like 1 div. It just makes no sense at start of league why these are so expensive for so long. And like you can see, they've just crashed on the market because they're so damn available, which means we can play all of our favorite builds again, finally. Now, Bottle Faith, these are up in price because they're actually quite hard to attain. They're like 12 div. If you can't get this, any other flask is going to do, or a Cinder Swallow is perfectly fine. Cinder Swallow is going to give you a good amount of damage, and it's going to give you regeneration as well. Beyond that, I've got a Granite Flask with charges gained and armor. I've got a Basalt Flask with charges gained and Ignite immunity and Burning immunity, which is why we don't have to run Soul of Aberoth anymore. I'm running a Taste of Hate for when I delve, and also a Quartz Flask as well. And I switch this out when I map, and I run a Silver Flask and a Quicksilver Flask as well. So the damage goes up just a touch more. Do with that what you will. I just switch it around. Like, depending on the circumstances, flasks are a good way to sort of deal with different circumstance. And that's exactly the way that I approach it. Anyway, that's it for gearing. Super easy stuff. Let's talk about the skill gem setups. Okay, so Helm. We've got Arcanist Brand, Flammability, Assassin's Mark, and Elemental Weakness. In the wand, we've got Infernal Cry, Call to Arms, and Inspiration. Just reduces that mana cost down. In our shield, we got Frostblink of Wintry Blast, Faster Casting, and Sigil of Power. We also have a pretty quick cast on Sigil of Power, which is great. And then in the main setup, we've got Incinerate of Venting. Ideally, you want 2120, but I've only got a 28 of this. Otherwise, your standard Incinerate gem. We've got Infused Channeling, Arcane Surge, Increased Critical Damage, Inspiration, and Empower. Now, people are like, could you run Concentrate? You could run Concentrate or Concentration. It would give you an increase of damage, but it's going to rip your AoE. Entirely up to you though. Like, it's just going to give you more damage at the end of the day. In my ring, I've got Discipline, Veil Discipline, that is. Then in my gloves, I've got Enlighten level 2, almost level 3, so we don't have to spend a huge amount of currency on that. Zealotry, Tempest Shield, Determination, and then in my boots, I'm running Desecrate, Enfeeble, Molten Shell, and Custom Damage Taken. So from looking at it, you'll also want to get rid of this Desecrate and basically replace for anything else that you want to put in the build, because it's completely useless. So we don't need that. Anyway, let's go on to the skill tree. Okay, so skill tree. So we're going to come up and get Deep Wisdom into practical application. Though we don't necessarily need this, we do need it for the resistances because we're balancing on a hair trigger here, so we do need that resistance that this provides us. And also the strength and dexterity too. Then we come across and we get Nimbleness. Now previously I had 25% more spell damage if you've been stunned while casting recently. You're not going to need that if you have Vile Bastion. It's completely useless at this stage. Then we'll come across and we'll get the dual node here. Now, I've went for reduced extra crit damage or damage from crit strikes because I'm basically crit immune with this. I think I've got 102%, 103%, I was close, of crit damage reduction. You don't have to do that. You could put in anything you want, like block, something like that. Then we come up and we grab Throat Seeker, Critical Masteries. This has reduced critical strike damage taken. And then we go up to Light Eater and we get 10% of Leech as instant. And then we just got our Forbidden Flesh Jewel up here with some extra mana. We come up to Chaos Inoculation and then we have Influence with 10% increased effect of Auras. Then we'll come back up. We're going to get Arcane Focus, Arcane Will. We want Prodigal Perfection. Make sure you go up on this side because you get 10% increased spell damage. Then we'll get Mystic Bulwark for more block. Then we come down and get Annihilation for crit, Instability, Deep Thoughts, And if you are somehow managing to fit in a Herald, you could also take one of these Herald or both of these Herald nodes too if you've got some spare points. Because we run Intuitive Leap in this setup. Now, for people who ask, Infused Flesh does not work with ES, so not even worth trying it. Then we come up, we get Disciple of the Forbidden. We want the 3% increased damage node. This is significantly going to increase your damage. We get Heart of Flame, and then we also want Crit Strikes to not inherently ignite, but 100% damage against enemies that are ignited, which is pretty big. Then we come across and get Unnatural Calm. We want the increase of 100% to Energy Shield from equipped helmets. We'll do clusters last. Then we come down and get Arcane Guarding and Shield Mastery, which gives you block. That'll get you up to 76% block. Then we get Zealot's Oath, Arcane Potency, more crit against enemy bosses, down to Sovereignty with increased damage per aura. Then we come down, we grab Faith and Steel, and then we want 10% damage from hits taken as chaos damage. And we want a large Thread of Hope. Now, when you're filtering, you want to filter for only effects in the PoB trade window for filterable attributes, and then large is what you want. Now, they're the most expensive because they're the most effective. And then we take 3 nodes, Divine Shield, Glancing Blows, and we take Light of Divinity. So after that, we come up, and now my Cluster Jewel isn't even finished yet, so the damage is going to go up on this. So I've got Smoking Remains and Master of Fire in my 8 Cluster Jewel. And then Forbidden Flame, we come up and we get Vital Focus and Rapid Infusion. And then we get Nature's Patience. Now you could get a better Cluster Jewel than this, but I had to trade mine out because I needed attribute points. But yeah, as long as it's got Rapid Infusion, you can get one that gives you Critical Strike as well. So yeah, do with that what you will. Now, as far as Ascendencies go, same as before, we get Shaper of Storms first, Mastermind of Discord, Heart of Destruction, and then Bastion of Elements. And obviously we get Vile Bastion as well from the Forbidden Flame and the Forbidden Flesh setup in this. Now, Pantheons, as I would have already noted, I'm currently running Soul of the Brine King, and I'm running Soul of Tukahama. Okay, so yeah, hopefully this guide helps you. As I said, the third guide I'm going to put out after I've got a little bit more currency. I'm going to run a second build to run through Delve quicker. And also I just wanted to play something a little easier on my hands because holding down the button and casting sort of gets you a little bit after a few weeks of doing it. That being said, yeah, I'm smashing Delve bosses with this pretty easily. About my 300 to 350 strat does work with this build. It's designed for this type of build. So you just blast through the nodes and find bosses and Delve really quickly because we're going to use Frostblink or Wintry Blast to navigate Delve. But yeah, outside of that, if you've got any questions, feel free to pop them in the comments below. I'll have a look. The POB for this of both Venting and the standard Incinerate gem will be in the description below as well. So do what you will with that. And pretty much the last upgrade we're going for is better Cluster Jewel and Mage Blood, and then better Flask, and then we're done. We're basically in God mode territory. We should be able to take down to Ubers with Incinerate, which will be really amusing to watch. I'm probably about a week away from that, but I've got to travel over the next few weeks, so we'll see how we go. And yeah, anyway, I'll see you guys on stream later on, and yeah, hopefully this build gets you over the line. I'd probably say this build is just like a comfortable all-arounder build. It's not the best build in the game. It's definitely not meta, and that's why I play these types of builds. But it's just fun to play Incinerate. Let's be real. Like, nobody else is trying to make this thing work. So anyway, I'll see you guys next time, and have a good one.